All right, y'all, it is finally time for my second most ultimate Talkbox tip, and it's a loaded one, y'all. It's going to be a long one, so sit tight. And towards the end of the video, I will give you a clear answer. It's simple, it's not easy. And not only will it help your harmonies, it's going to have a profound impact on your funk compositions as a whole. The first Talkbox tip was the cherry on top. This is the icing. Let's get into it. Now, trust me, I'm not trying to clickbait you here. As a matter of fact, I'm going to start with the good stuff. I'm going to answer one of the most elusive questions about the Talkbox, and particularly the work of prominent Talkboxers, such as your Rogers, your Teddys, Mr. Talkbox, Fingers, you know, that crew. So elusive that a viewer was cursing me out about it on one of my last Talkbox videos. So yes, this one is for you. Today is your day. But what this means is you're going to have to take your focus off of the Talkboxers and pay attention to some singers and pianists. And the question is, how are these people putting together these harmonies? Because they always sound amazing, but it's kind of tough to just simply figure out by listening to it. However, I am here to tell you that there is a red thread. There's a common denominator with all of this stuff. The broad general answer is contained within 2 words, and that's what I'm going to end it off with. But there's some specifics we're going to have to start with, and I'm going to kind of work my way backwards. All right? Let's get into it. All right. First thing you got to understand is that this is not just a conversation about harmony, but rather more so a conversation about voicing. You see, the art isn't just within the harmony itself, but how we voice them. Particularly when it comes to human vocals, there's a finite amount, so to speak. There's an end to the amount of chords and harmonies that we can come up with, but there's a near infinite amount of ways that we can voice them. Okay. So you can compile that with the different timbre and tone of each human voice, and you can create a range of sounds within just one harmony. So there's many approaches to voicing and harmonic structure as a whole, but there are a couple of particular approaches that you're going to want to take a look at. So on a vocal level, you want to look into the doo-wop style of the 50s and 60s, which was somewhat an evolution, an answer to the more established classic barbershop vocal style, the barbershop quartet. Now, there's some differences, but there's a lot of overlap as well. We're not going to explain too much about the differences and the overlap, but there's one particular overlap I want you to look at, and it's a sort of the source of a specific harmonic structure. And this is derived from something called block chords. It's been around since the classical era. It's been around for a long time. But there have been artists such as a pianist named George Shearing, and he kind of made a whole style out of it. He even made a technique out of it called the locked hands technique. And so that's basically the good stuff, all right? That's what it is. Barbershop style, doo-wop style, using block chords, and the way that you kind of put that together, the way that you play it on the Talkbox, is going to be using the lock hands technique. So that's the good stuff. It's about 4 major ingredients that are really important to understand. It's going to kind of help you figure out how to compose these ideas and also play them on the keyboard, i.e. the locked hands technique. Right? It kind of helps you to work it out and execute them. So I got a couple of examples I want you to check out and listen to, a video and a couple of songs. We're going to start with a clip from the great Oscar Peterson, and he is demonstrating a bunch of techniques and concepts of different harmonic styles and kind of explaining its DNA, so to speak. But I want to look at a particular part where he shows block chords and mentions George Shearing and talks about the locked hands technique. All right, so here we go.
What about the relaxed block chords, or would that be a typo for black chords? No, I guess not in George Shearing's case.
Not in George Shearing. George Shearing used this kind of thing. piece left, Roses of Picardy, where he used the fullness of a sax section almost, instead of playing. You get the full chord.
Now, play it again with partial chord.
Partial chord would be 2 notes, for instance. It's much sparse, much more sparse. This is full.
So this video of Oscar Peterson was actually the one that helped me figure out the difference between a lot of different harmonic styles and pinpoint what it was about Roger Troutman's Talkbox harmonies that I really liked and how to figure out these concepts. So I had stopped the video and I looked up George Shearing as well as all the other artists. I took a really big deep dive into them. And I ultimately, that's something that you guys should be doing too. But for the purpose of this video, we're going to look a little bit more into George Shearing. So there's a song from him called Lullaby of Birdland. I want you to stop the video and look up this song. It's a very popular song from his day. It was one of his biggest songs. And I want you to go, stop the video and find that song, look it up and check it out. And just listen to the way that he's using chords and harmonies to support the melody of the song, right? So go ahead and listen to it. Not too much analyzing, just kind of just take it in. Go ahead and listen to it and come back. I'll be right here. All right, so did you hear that? Those are block chords, right? Now he's made a whole big style about this, and it's evolved throughout his time, during his run. Check out more stuff from him. I really did a deep dive, and I really love his stuff. Check out more stuff from him, more albums of him. You'll probably hear a lot of stuff, a lot of red threads for some other styles in the past as well. So that's George Shearing, right? He's not necessarily the creator of the style, but he just made a big thing about using it so heavily. And one of the reasons why I suggested to look him up is because there's a lot of analysis on his work. There's a lot of great videos that's kind of breaking down his work and his technique. And it's going to really help you understand the fundamentals of how to execute this on the keyboard, right? How to actually play this stuff. So I'm going to leave this to you to do the research, but there's a lot of information about George Shearing and his locked hands technique style. So look that up on YouTube or wherever you can find it. All right. Now, let's talk about doo-wop, barbershop vocal groups. There's a bunch of them from the past that we could go over. But there is one particular group from modern times that I want to use as an example because they use both of those styles, the doo-wop and the barbershop quartet style. Although they're not a quartet, they're a sextet, there's 6 people. They use both styles and other styles, gospel, blues, and they just do it so masterfully. It's such an incredible level. And I think this is an incredible example from them. So the name of the group is called Take 6. These guys is next level. And this album I want you to check out. I'm putting it up here on the screen. This album is pretty much all a cappella. It's mostly gospel. There's some effects, you may hear a little bit of, double voicing, maybe a little chorus or something, but there's no autotune, okay? And when I say harmony, this is motherfucking harmony. All right? These dudes know what they're doing. Okay? I was so fortunate to be able to have heard this as a child because it just does not get better than this. I was able to kind of consume this over and over and over as a kid and listen to this. If you never heard this before, folks, get ready to have your minds absolutely blown out of your skull. This is some serious harmony, y'all. It's the best example I have for you. So go ahead and look up this album. You can listen to any song from this album. It's just absolutely insane. Go ahead and do it. I'll be here waiting for you. Okay, so did you hear that? I just want you to hear how crazy it can get, right? There's no understanding this, as soon as you hear it, okay? But just imagine if you were able to understand just a fraction of what you heard and apply that to your Talkbox, right? Just imagine how what would you be able to do, okay? Well, you have to understand that is the cloth that Zapp and Roger is cut from, okay? Ohio R&B legends before them, Ohio Players, Isley Brothers, OJs. That's their background. Those are the bands that Zapp and Roger looked up to. I'll give you another example. George Clinton, he started in a doo-wop group. That's where he started. That's how he got signed. He was in a doo-wop group. All right, so this is the cloth that these guys are cut from. And the doo-wop and the barbershop quartets, these are the key ingredients for you to have a grasp of if you want to be able to compose these Roger Teddy style harmonies, right? However, if you want to be able to get the grasp of this stuff, there's a few more steps you're going to have to take before you can get there. You're going to have to learn about harmony in general, things like superimpositions, upper extensions. Before that, you'll have to learn probably about inversions or seventh chords probably before that. And before that, you'll have to learn about triads and two-note harmonies or two-note intervals. You probably have to learn about scales and modes and degrees and stuff like that. And by the time you've gone down this rabbit hole, you'll have found your answer. You'll discover, like I did, that you are neck deep in the learning process of the two simple words that I mentioned in the beginning of this video. You will be neck deep in the learning process of jazz theory. Yes, folks, it's jazz theory, but not necessarily the genre. Jazz theory is music theory 2.0. It's an update, so to speak, a DLC, if you will. It already takes classical theory into account, and it builds upon that through observation, through analysis, through experimentation. It's a toolkit. It's a toolbox for composition. That's the way you want to look at this. There was a moment, there was a Pandora's box that was open. It was the day that Scott Joplin observed the groove of the locomotive chugging along where he lived, the train tracks. He analyzed the rhythm of those train tracks while he also analyzed the rhythm and the groove of the waltz. Dum bum bum boom bum bum boom bum bum boom. Right, the waltz was the hot music of his time. That was the pop music. Right, that's what everybody got down to, the waltz. It was also known as rag music at the time as well. And he experimented one day with mashing the sound of the locomotive with the sound of waltz, aka rag, chugga 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 chugga, right? Or if you think about when the actual wheels of the tracks may go over a bump, right? You have four wheels that are close together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Dugga 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 dugga, right? That's your swing. That's where that swing comes from. Observation and analysis, experimentation. That was the moment that Scott Joplin thought, let's try and put it all together. Dun 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 dun. There's your ragtime. That was pretty much the moment jazz was essentially born. Essentially, the man opened a musical Pandora's box. It was like the first remix, right? The OG stank face. Funk as we know it would not exist without jazz. 90% of the musicians in your favorite funk bands are formerly jazz and classically trained musicians. They went to university and all of that stuff, folks. Many of them had other aspirations and kind of somewhat backed into the funk, believe it or not. And they kind of haphazardly became pioneers, right? Roger Troutman is cut from that same cloth when it comes to harmony. Learning just some jazz theory is going to have a two-part benefit. It's going to not only help you understand, analyze, and compose your own really cool Talkbox harmonies, but it's also going to help everything. Everything. The way that you hear music is going to change. It's like having x-ray glasses. You kind of see through it differently. You hear it differently. Think about it like seeing an exhibition of beautiful paintings, and you're inspired to make something too, but you don't know what any of the colors are called. Right? That's a problem. Right? This is kind of putting a name and a label to all these colors that you're seeing, all these spices that you're tasting. Yes, rock, gospel, blues, they're all very important, but there's no shorter path than jazz theory, because it's already pre-built to be an analytical toolbox for you. And it's everywhere, online, multiple languages, and you don't need to learn it from me. You can learn it from so many different sources. Plus, there's levels to it. And there's this sort of invisible threshold where too much jazz, complexity, and funk just kind of starts to sound like jazz fusion. So you don't have to worry about learning all of it. Just enough, just a little bit, just like you don't have to learn a language in its entirety to navigate around a foreign country, right? So if you want to make stuff like this, or this,
Radio 106.5, The Prophecy.
or this, then the answer is within jazz theory, right? There's thousands of YouTube channels in multiple languages. Frankly, you have no excuse to not stop what you're doing right now and learn some level of jazz. You don't need to be a full expert black belt in jazz to make some cold funk music. I want to try and give you a little bit more perspective on just how little you need to learn, There's a great video out there by a YouTuber named Adam Neely, and he uses this analogy of spiciness to explain levels of jazz. And according to his chart, I would say you wouldn't need to go past level 3, 4. He caps at 7, right? So you don't need to go much more than about halfway or so, right? I mean, if you're at 4, that's amazing, but 3, just fine. In other words, you would need to learn maximum about half of what there is to know about jazz theory, and you will be absolutely destroying some funk tunes. You don't need to have it under your skin. You don't need to be able to execute it perfectly every time. All that's great. You can always go back to a tutorial. I do it all the time. You can always change the note afterwards. You can always re-record the take. I do that all the time. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just having a little bit of work and knowledge could take you a long, long way. So get out there and start studying. I have merely opened up the hood to show you the parts and where they are, not necessarily showing you how they work or how to make them in this video. I will be whipping up a second video of some Talkbox focused examples from my own songs and breaking them down on specific parts. Now, I hope you found this video helpful and useful. I can really use your support in helping me finish building out this studio and get as jacked as possible by eating copious amounts of protein and vitamins. You can do that by hitting that GoFundMe link in the description and in the comments. However, simply subscribing to the channel, hitting that notification bell, and sharing this video is also extremely helpful as well. Thank you, everyone. I will see you in the next video. And until then, may the funk be with you. Always. Peace.